Welcome to Hope and Firm Foundations, where we have heart-to-heart, Christ-centered conversations about healthy relationships. And as always, to God be the glory. So people often use the word toxic and unhealthy interchangeably. However, one thing I want to state is I will not be doing that in this video. And pretty much the difference that I want to kind of leave with you guys is that with toxic, it's actually poisonous, right? But when you think about unhealthy, it's usually something that with enough work, communication, counseling, whatever you call, it can kind of be restored to a healthier state. However, when I say toxic, it's poisonous. Toxic is defined as poisonous, dangerous, venomous. It's not a relationship where there might even be room for reconciliation. Usually those kind of relationships do require you to practice a lot of boundaries and to really get yourself support, get yourself some space where you can really focus on yourself. So toxic behaviors are often very destructive and harmful to members of the family. And I mentioned some of that normalization in the last video, but it can get to a point where no one even suspects that this is the toxic state that we're in. The scariest part of the toxic familial dynamic is that, and toxic behaviors in general, the scariest part about them is after a while they become so normalized that people don't even process it as toxic. It becomes a normal part of the family.
This is fine. I'm okay with the events that are unfolding currently. That's okay. Things are gonna be okay.
The behaviors we're going to be talking about shouldn't be normal. It's not safe. It's not healthy for anyone involved and can really, really affect us. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today, is the impact of existing within toxic familial dynamics and what it can do to the individual. In toxic family dynamics, individuals in the family are controlled, manipulated, disrespected, criticized, blamed, threatened, and abused. We're going to be exploring what happens when we exist in these families and just how it affects us as individuals trying to find a way to manage these families. So the first thing I'm going to mention as a symptom of existing within a toxic family dynamic is emotional dysregulation. Emotional dysregulation happens when you have difficulty controlling your emotions. ED is actually described as a mental health symptom that involves trouble controlling your emotions and how you act to those feelings. To those around you, the way you react can be seen as out of control, be seen as weird, can be seen as extreme to what's actually happened. Symptoms of emotional dysregulation include severe depression, high levels of shame, anger, anxiety, substance use, or self-harm. The next thing that can happen is attachment issues, patterns of troubled or dysfunctional relationship. I already kind of mentioned that families are our first relationship with the world, and oftentimes if we come from a toxic family, it's really hard to really have like more healthy relationship with others. The next effect is low self-esteem, right? And self-esteem is essentially how we see and value ourselves. As we know, people with low self-esteem often value the opinions of other people above their own. Unfortunately, traumatic experiences can instill core beliefs as if we're unlovable, we're unwanted, and we're just worthless. These core beliefs become how we navigate the world. And unfortunately, when you navigate the world in a space where you don't believe in yourself and you don't think you're worth much, the likelihood of attracting people that affirm you and that build you up is really low. When we are in a family dynamic where we are being abused, disrespected, undermined, gaslighted, and silenced, low self-esteem is inevitable. The final point I actually want to focus on is people-pleasing tendencies. And the reason why I really want to focus on that is when you exist within a toxic family dynamic, people-pleasing tendencies can be an emotional response to trauma. So the first sign of people-pleasing is that you are so busy trying to present yourself in a way that makes everyone else comfortable that you fail to be your authentic self. The next one is you don't know how to say no, even though you really want to. You internalize your emotions so much that people only know there's something wrong when you're breaking down or about to have a breakdown. Next one is you feel more comfortable actually sharing your feelings on social media with strangers than the people that you have in your life. The next one is you compromise your beliefs, your values, just so you can maintain relationships with the people in your life. This can look like agreeing with things that you really don't agree with and going to places that you don't want to go to, but just because you want to please that other person, you end up going. The next sign of people pleasing is you are a giver. Even though you know it's inconvenient to give this person something, you still end up giving it to them because you don't want to let them down and you want to maintain the relationship, and you're afraid of what might happen if you truly say no and don't come through for this person. This is a point that I highlighted because for a long time in my life, like, that's the point. Like, I used to really withdraw from myself just to make sure that everyone around me was good, right? But how that kind of trickled in is to the other factors that I kind of mentioned is the people around me didn't really know me because I didn't really know myself. I just knew a version of myself that was really liked by them. So that's pretty much the version that I would show. However, deep down, like, I was dying. I was breaking down. I was not doing okay. And instead of confiding in those same people that are putting me through this, or I'm allowing to put me through this, I would just confide in strangers. And the saddest point for me was it got to a point where I just felt so alone. Like, I felt so misunderstood. And I started really, like, isolating myself from these people because I didn't have it in me to keep giving to them, but I also didn't have it in me to let them know exactly how I felt. So unfortunately, for that time period in my life, like, I did have to kind of remove myself from a lot of situations because I didn't have the ability to say no yet. The next one is you don't have no free time for yourself. You find that most of your days are spent trying to make sure that someone else is okay. You're always going to appointments, you're always there everywhere, but it's never really having to do with taking care of yourself. So you end up taking care of everyone around you first, leaving little to no time for yourself. I wanted to say that please note that toxic family dynamics are multifaceted and they can vary due to trauma, violence, abuse, substance use, unhealthy communication, lack of boundaries, mental health, and intergenerational patterns. Like we mentioned earlier, we know that toxic family habits can become a normal part of the family, and unfortunately, if they are not addressed, it could be something that gets passed down through generations. At the same time, the good news is all it takes is for one person to be like, you know what, this doesn't work for me, and then getting the right support to truly make that change. However, we know with these relationships, especially when we talk about the toxicity where abuse is present, it's not always that the answer is that the whole family becomes healthier. It might just be that you choose yourself, you choose your children, you choose your brother, your sister, whomever is in that relationship with you that can support you, but not all family members are essentially included in whatever the next step looks like. So for those of you who come from a toxic family, I can relate. I want to just let you know that you are a survivor. I can also imagine the pain that you are going through / been through in trying to survive and even thrive in toxic family dynamics. Many of the tactics that you use to survive is an asset. However, there are many behaviors I can imagine that after reflecting on, you realize is probably not useful or not helpful in the person you're trying to be next or the person you want to be next. Some of these behaviors we have used for years, decades, so don't expect change to happen overnight. However, more howevers, consistency, prayer, patience, and practice learning new behaviors can be helpful. And like always, I always say talk to someone you trust, someone you know can hear you, can really offer you that space to maybe process some of the things you've been through. I always recommend therapy, talking to a counselor, a pastor, whoever you feel like can really take you to that next step of whatever that journey looks like for yourself. Additionally, I recommend connecting someone that's trauma informed, that can really support you and help you process, because oftentimes there's a lot of shame and blame when leaving these toxic family dynamics where we start to really reflect on the situation and we start kind of blaming ourselves, asking ourselves, why did we stay that long, depending on where you're at, right? But you definitely need someone that can help you understand what happens to the brain when you've experienced prolonged toxicity, prolonged abuse, especially when we talk about that power and control wheel, which I have not covered. If after watching this video, you have decided that you want to take steps to get support, I am very proud of you. I pray that the Holy Spirit helps you to take control of your life your mind. You deserve a life free of violence. You deserve a life that has peace. You deserve to get support. You are not unworthy. You are not unlovable. You are made for more, and you were beautifully and uniquely made by God, and I definitely want that to be on the record. Next thing is, as you know, you cannot change other people. However, the good news is you can work to change yourself, and sometimes changing yourself might just be, like I said earlier, again, it's just removing yourself from that environment and choosing better for yourself. And if you want to kind of go back and try to have conversations with whoever it is that caused whatever harm, I hope you're in a safe space to do that. But sometimes that might not necessarily come. And forgiveness is one that I one day hope to cover. But I hope you do forgive them, not because, you want to, or because they deserve it, but for yourself, right? It's for you to set yourself free and to give room for yourself to just have love. And I hope you invite Christ into your heart, the Holy Spirit, to really, really give you the ability to have strength, because sometimes it's the supernatural strength of God that can only get us through things that have deeply ingrained themselves into our hearts, our mind, our souls, our bodies. I pray that you continue to go on that journey and just get support.